All right, calls me in order. First item is roll call.
Alderman Arnold.
Here.
Alderman Bass.
Here.
Alderman Cleaver.
Here.
Alderman Knox.
Here.
Alderman Mills.
Here.
Alderman Skinner.
Here.
There's a quorum.
All right, next item will be invocation led by Pastor Darrell Jones of Crossroads Church, followed by a pledge of allegiance from Alderman Cleaver.
Lord our God, we've just come through this week of Thanksgiving and head into this season of celebration, the birth of our King and Savior Jesus Christ. We're grateful. Just as I drove in tonight and drove past our Price Chopper, our Quick Trip, and our Taco Bell and our Panda Express. The temp stop and all the things that didn't used to be here. God, I'm grateful that you blessed our community. I'm grateful for the leaders that are sitting before us and that have sat in these seats in the past that were part of the upgrades in our community to bring these things to our doors, and then as we drive down through our main street and on the Eagles Parkway. I'm just grateful for the businesses that have found footing here, that have found a way to establish themselves. And probably everyone could probably say they wish that we had more business and that they could grow. And so we pray that as these leaders transact business on behalf of our residents, on behalf of our businesses, God, that you would bless them. I know, especially the elected officials, they do so much for so very, very little pay. And we're just grateful for them today. And even as I pay my property taxes, something that's very easy to bellyache about. God, I'm glad I live in a community that there's evidence of what those property taxes have gone to. I'm proud to be able to pay them and participate in the growth of this community. And so as these leaders, as these city staff, and these elected officials transact business on my behalf, God, I pray you give them wisdom and discernment and allow them to make decisions not on their own behalf, but on behalf of their constituents, and come to agreement and unity for the sake of the good of this community. We pray it all in the name of Jesus.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is the approval of the agenda.
No changes, Mayor.
All right. Seeing no proclamations, move on to public comment. We ask anyone who wishes to address the board this evening, step forward to the podium and microphone. And please make sure that you've signed in of your name and address for the record. Do we have anyone who wishes to address the board this evening? All right. Seeing none, move on to the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Okay, motion by Alderman Skinner to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Farrell. All right, any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. Seeing no previous business, new business or presentations, we'll move on to public hearings. We have a voluntary annexation request of a Track 1 Melvin Ray Christie at 4112 South Buckner Tarsi Road and Track 2 Duncan Road Church at 4108 South Buckner Tarsi Road.
So thank you, Mayor and Board. I'm going to refer to a map that's in your packet. And as you described, both the Tract 1 and Tract 2 addresses are on those tracks, 4112 and 4108. Tract 1 is owned by Melvin Ray Christie. Tract 2 is owned by Duncan Road Church. The petitioners are here in the audience. This morning I had a conversation with Melvin Ray Christie. At this time, Mr. Christie has asked to withdraw his petition for voluntary annexation, and I do have a letter from him withdrawing his petition for voluntary annexation. When I had the conversation with Mr. Christie this morning, I then notified Duncan Road Church in regards to that conversation with Mr. Christie, because as you can see, the Duncan Road Church is Tract 2 under the state statute, as well as the city attorney will explain here in a few minutes, that the Tract 2 is not compact and contiguous then to city limits, and therefore would not be then eligible for annexation into the city limits. And I'll let Joe explain that.
Actually, Mr. Mayor and Board, based on the information that Mr. Trozen spoke of, and I have seen a copy of the letter myself for the one of the petitioners to withdraw their petition for voluntary annexation, that would essentially moot the board's, any action that the board could take this evening. You would be without legal authority to even consider the matter going forward. Voluntary annexations are just that. The petitioners have to be willing to be annexed into the city. And when they file the petition, there is nothing in the state statutes that says that they cannot withdraw. And legally, it is our opinion that the latest point the point where they could no longer withdraw a petition would be after you have adopted an ordinance. And keep in mind that voluntary annexation ordinances actually do not even become effective until 15 days after the adoption, because it does still allow for an objection period to occur for folks to kind of essentially undo the voluntary annexation. In Missouri, there is a process for doing involuntary annexations to force someone to annex into the city, but that is not the process that the city has been following at this point. And because Tract 1 would completely separate Tract 2 from any touching at any point on the city's boundaries, you could not even consider just trying to annex the portion that is Tract 2. So at this point, I would suggest that you could close the public hearing, and this matter cannot be considered legally by the board going forward this evening.
Okay. Well, hearing that, then we'll close the public hearing and let's move on. Joe, will we need to amend the agenda to remove those? I believe the ordinance was on the nights.
At this
I'm not
point,
gonna-
because it's mooted, you can't take action on it anyway. I don't think you have to amend the agenda. We just have to understand that the
That's
matter
already
just
off?
cannot
Alright.
come before the board this evening.
All right, sounds good. So no more public hearings, move on to resolutions. We have resolution R 22-65, a resolution by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Grand Valley authorizing the city administrator to sign a contract amendment with McCall Construction LLC for construction management services.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number R 22-65.
Okay, I have a motion from Alderman Skinner to approve resolution R 22-65. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Knox. Any discussion?
Mayor and members of the of the board, as you're aware, we're going through the construction manager at risk process for the construction of the new police station. So the steps that were involved in that, we hired an architect through the bond process or the election, which was approved. So then we brought on McCown Gordon as the construction manager, and they worked with the architect and staff to come up with that final design for the police station. Based off that, they sent the bid packets out to all of the bidders that they had. Got back good bids on it. They compiled that and put together what's called the guaranteed maximum price. So essentially, they're saying this is the maximum that it's going to cost to build the police station at this point. After this, that really is kind of the last step. We're looking at construction being at the end of March. But what they've come back with is essentially $12.2 million to build the police station. So that's still part of the $14 million bond. Obviously, the design fees and stuff are in addition to that, but it does keep us within our original budget for the police station.
Do you have any questions, comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, next up be ordinances.
The first is Bill number B 22-31. This is an ordinance amending Title IV Land Use of the Municipal Code of Ordinances in Section 400.230 Accessory Uses pertaining to home occupations and other sections that may be impacted by these amendments.
Mayor, I move that we accept the second reading of Bill number B 22-31 and approve it as ordinance number 2403.
Okay. I have a motion by Alderman Bass to approve Bill B 22-31 for its second reading, making ordinance 2403. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Cleaver. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, this will be roll call.
Alderman Arnold,
Yes.
Alderman Bass,
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver,
Yes.
Alderman Knox,
Yes.
Alderman Mills,
Yes.
Alderman Skinner.
Yes.
Okay, the next is a second read for Bill number B 22-32. This is an ordinance, amending Title IV Land Use of the Municipal Code of Ordinances. Am I reading? I did, I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. B 22-32. This is an ordinance granting an easement across City of Green Valley property for sewer main installation to Consolidated Library District Number 3, DBA Mid-Continent Public Library. Sorry.
Mayor, I move we accept the second reading of bill number B 22-32 and make it, approve it as ordinance number 2404.
Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Cleaver to approve Bill B 22-32 for its second reading, making ordinance 2404. I have a second.
Second.
Second, Alderman Mills. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, this will be roll call.
Alderman Skinner,
Yes.
Alderman Mills,
Yes.
Alderman Knox,
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver,
Yes.
Alderman Bass,
Yes.
Alderman Arnold.
Yes.
Okay. The next is the second reading of Bill number B 22-33. This is an ordinance approving the 2023 fiscal year budget and comprehensive fee schedule of the City of Green Valley, Missouri.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept second reading of Bill 22-33 and bring it back as ordinance 2405.
Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Knox to approve Bill B 22-33 for its second reading, making ordinance 2405. Do I have a second?
Second.
Everywhere.
Mills.
Go with the Bass. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, let's be roll call.
Alderman Bass,
Yes.
Alderman Arnold,
Yes.
Alderman Knox,
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver,
Yes.
Alderman Skinner,
Yes.
Alderman Mills.
Yes.
And
Alright.
then
The
the last
next
one.
one was withdrawn due to the.
Yep.
So next up then will be city attorney's reports.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, you probably heard by now that at the most recent elections, the citizens of Missouri have approved a constitutional amendment in Missouri to allow recreational marijuana to be consumed by those 21 and older in the near future. And so just wanted to report briefly for you this evening that as a result, and for those of you who maybe were around when medical marijuana came on the scene, there was quite a bit of activity that the city had to undertake. Same will be true with respect to recreational. So I just wanted to give you a quick heads up of what you're going to see coming before you in fairly short order as we go. So just again, must be over 21 to consume recreational marijuana. Paraphernalia will now be legal for those, again, 21 and older. So we'll have to rewrite portions of the city code that deal with, any kind of criminalization of those from the municipal violation standpoint. Their personal growing will now be legal. Many of the things that we saw previously with medical, you'll now see with respect to recreational. One of the other things I'll note for you is to the extent that you have medical facilities in the city, those medical facilities will automatically be allowed by the state to become what are called comprehensive facilities, which means that they will sell both medical and recreational. So medical marijuana is still also constitutionally protected in Missouri and exists kind of, if we have a Venn diagram, there's probably a little bit of overlap between the two circles, but both medical and recreational marijuana will continue to will coexist when this occurs. Other prohibited conduct previously, because possession of marijuana and consumption of marijuana itself was illegal, we really never had about anything in our books as far as writing tickets for consumption while driving, consumption, smoking in a vehicle or boat, or possession on school property, because possession itself was illegal. So those are all things that you're going to see changes coming to the city's ordinances to address those issues. Timeline-wise, recreational marijuana did not become effective immediately. It will become effective on December 8th. One of the things that the board, I think, should keep in mind, and something that preliminarily, at least, staff recommends, and our intention would be to bring an ordinance forward to you, is, first of all, you are going to incur cost in making these changes. As you may know, another constitutional amendment in Missouri, the Hancock Amendment, says that you can't impose additional responsibilities on cities without providing them with a source of revenue. This constitutional provision meets that requirement by allowing cities to put a sales tax on the sale of recreational marijuana of up to 3%. Our recommendation is that you would put a 3% tax on the ballot that would be for the April election. And you have to have that on the ballot prior to January 27th, did we say? I think that's right. You don't have to look it up. The end of January is your last date to certify the ballot. So we would recommend that you would pass an ordinance to put that on the ballot. And then finally, based on calculations and what we're seeing is that we think that the first day that recreational marijuana will become available for sale at retail will be approximately February 6th. And the reason for that is once recreational marijuana becomes, once the constitutional amendment becomes effective on December 8th, in order to we think, the first facilities, like a dispensary that exists now from a medical standpoint that will be able to sell from a recreational will be those converting their licenses to comprehensive. Department of Health and Human Services will be in control of this like they were for medical, and they have an application process. The application process by the Constitution says that once an applicant submits an application to become a comprehensive facility, if it's not approved within 60 days, then it's deemed approved. DHSS is pretty much admitting at this point they don't have any forms, they're not ready for this. So what we think is going to happen is most medical facilities will automatically, on the 8th, will start to file their applications to become comprehensive. And when that 60-day clock runs out, they'll automatically be granted that status. So that's why we're using February 6th, and we're kind of using hedging language at this point. If DHSS moves forward faster, it could happen faster, but we think February 6th is where we're gonna actually, be able to see pre-roll products be made available at dispensaries. It won't be something that you can just pick up at the convenience store or at the grocery store. It still will have to be through a licensed, state licensed facility. You're going to see a lot of changes to your zoning code in addition to the city's municipal ordinance violations, and there will be some issues dealing with signs that we didn't have previously. There will be rules about smoking in public. I think for me, I really kind of fully comprehended the paradigm shift as we've been working through the analysis on this, is that it's truly going to be very similar to alcohol consumption. You could be at a restaurant and it's probably not a big deal to look at the dessert menu and find a port wine or, a Spanish coffee or an Irish coffee to drink for dessert. And I have a feeling that it won't be out of the norm in the future that you can order, a pot brownie as a part of your dessert, because it's going to be like alcohol. So it is going to be a pretty significant paradigm shift. One of the issues that we're still working through with our police departments is that currently there is no breathalyzer for marijuana. With alcohol, we've had inventions that help to determine impairment. We don't have that, so our police officers are gonna, have to kind of come back to kind of field sobriety tests to prove up driving while impaired. Because again, there will be, situations where you can consume marijuana and it can actually stay in your system for several weeks. It'd be detectable, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're impaired at that time. That's going to be a very difficult part of the enforcement of this. And then last but not least, one of the things that you'll be taking a look at will be all of your employment policies, how you do drug testing. There are some protections for if you're taking federal grant money and you would be at risk of losing that, that you can keep some of the, kind of the protections in place. And also any of your employees that would be required to undergo like a CDL, like any federal Department of Transportation type testing, licensing, that if they would potentially lose the license, you can protect against that. So there's going to be wholesale change that we're working on. In fact, kind of see this binder. We're working on, all of these issues for, all of the cities that we work with. So again, I just wanted to give you kind of maybe it didn't end up being so brief, but a brief summary of the 39 pages of constitutional amendment that was passed and the effect that will have. And you will start seeing some of these ordinances coming through over the coming weeks. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Just real quick, Joe. I just want to make sure I understand. Are you saying that with this, there's going to be smoking indoors? Or are you just saying like consuming?
Consuming, so you can drink alcohol inside, and there really aren't ordinances against that. There anywhere that let's say that there's a smoke-free area. So if you've passed no smoking in restaurants in the city, then the smoking itself is still prohibited. So whether you're smoking tobacco or you're smoking marijuana, they're both going to be prohibited in that case.
Just double checking on that.
Yep.
And then you mentioned the end of February, I think is what you were saying. When is it going to become legal to possess marijuana? Is it December 8th?
So that's it's an interesting question because nobody's going to have a license on December 8th to sell recreationally.
You can grow it though.
It's like if you have a license, you can grow it. You could start growing it on December 8th. Now, I don't know where you're going to get your seed or, I think it's just going to be one of those things where it's a miracle. All of a sudden, weed's going to just pop up. And, and we know that it exists in our community the way it is. And so, but the truth is that while people cannot legally buy it at retail, we think until probably about February 6th, and again, it's a licensing question there. If you have it, you can consume it, you can possess it beginning December the 8th.
Thanks.
If we put a tax on the ballot of 3%, will that 3% come to our distributing factory down here? Would they pay 3% on all their sales?
My understanding is that it is a tax on retail sales. So if they are not making retail sales at their, if it's a manufacturing facility, they're probably not making retail sales, then it really won't apply to them, but it will apply. I don't know if I just don't remember whether you actually have a dispensary.
So at this point we don't. They just have the cultivation and manufacturing license. So this would be kind of more of a proactive thing for if and when more permits are given, more licenses are given for those shops.
Right. So it's going to open up the amount of licenses that will be out there. And the reason I kind of pointed at the medical facilities that are in existence now is that's going to be the fastest way for someone to move, to have their license granted, essentially. So if they've already got a medical license, they can turn that to a comprehensive license. And we think it will probably happen automatically in 60 days. If DHSS turns it around and they have an application process that goes faster, then it could be faster. But, we think it, kind of mainstream, if you will, if you have a dispensary in town, it could start selling, then. Even if you don't, and say Blue Springs does, if someone goes to Blue Springs and buys at a legal recreational dispensary and they have it in Grain Valley, they possess it legally. as long as it's in the, I think it's 3 ounces or under, I believe is what the number is. And don't quote me on that one, but I'm just kind of going from memory. But it's a decent amount. I mean, 3 ounces is a good sized sandwich bag, I think. Yeah, so.
That's one
It's
way
a
to
lot.
put it.
I mean, we were, looking at, what is that going to be? And it's interesting, because, this is like, we just had a big meeting about this Friday at our office is, officers, there's going to be a whole new process for search warrants that are based only on possession. And so officers are actually going to have to call Department of Health and Human Services to get a warrant to do a search. If your pretense is essentially to do it for possession, it's going to be problematic. But, for example, as long as they aren't a transporter, which you can get a license for that, right? Even medically right now, if you're not a transporter, if a police officer in plain view sees, an amount of marijuana that, is, pretty obviously exceeds the 3 ounce, then they wouldn't have to get that, So, I mean, if someone's driving around with 50 kilos in the back of their station wagon, that's a stop. And we don't. Well, not, and if it's cumulatively, if it was just a sandwich bag, then you gotta let it go. So it is really going to change. And I don't know. There are, I think Missouri was the 22nd state to approve recreational. So this isn't something that is new. It's going to be new to us in Missouri. So we are trying to look to other states that have already gone through that, with questions about, what do we do about federal funding? What do we do about the licensing and things like that? And so, the law it'll probably come out the same way, but there's going to be a lot of gray areas and a lot of guesswork as we, get there. And our goal is to make you guys not the test case. So, we'll kind of provide advice that way. And I'm sure there will be some cities that will ultimately be test cases, and we'll see what needs to happen.
Captain, how many officers do we have that are, I'm drawing a blank, it's been a while since I was one of those, but that are certified on impairment beyond alcohol? DRE, or there's even a step below a DRE that I'm.
We don't have any DREs right now.
Okay.
It's a lengthy and expensive
Sure, absolutely. But
process.
there's one below it I'm drawing a blank on.
All of the officers are trained in basic
Sure.
SBST, DWI enforcement. We actually have some ongoing training right now.
Okay.
Move them up to a new instrument, but, other than that, I mean, that's how we would approach any, driving while impaired on anything, and just, you approach it from the impairment standpoint and work your way through to find out what they're impaired on.
Sure. When I think of the name, I'll send you an email and we can discuss it further, but I'm drawing a blank.
Now there was there's a course called A-Ride that's kind of
A bridge. Kind of, yeah.
for basic drug
Right.
protection.
Just wondering if we need to have that, see if we can't send some officers to that school next year. And
We can look into that and see. I don't know when, off the top of my head, if they've got any coming up.
yeah,
I
Okay.
really do those.
when I think of it, I'll let you know.
I may have 2 other points that are worth noting, just so you've got them in your head. And, as we're going through all this, one deals with the employment side, and that is presence of marijuana in the system alone is not going to be enough for discipline or for like termination of an employee. Actually must be impairment at work. So your question about the DREs actually makes me think that not only should our police department be stocking up on our DRE, but we actually may need to be looking at how to address that on the employment side, because folks, again, if you're testing and they just have marijuana in the system, but they are otherwise not showing any signs of enforcement, you're not going to be able to do discipline or termination. It's going to have to be that signs of impairment as well. So those things are gonna bleed over, just to keep that in mind. The other thing, back to the warrants, is the mere presence of marijuana itself is not gonna be enough to get a warrant. It has to be that plus,
impairment, that plus maybe other items that would allow you to search the vehicle. So there's going to be, it's going to change the way we approach traffic stops and so forth on that. Yeah, that's it.
Accept city administrator staff reports.
We'll start with Mr. Davies.
Mayor and board, just wanted to remind everyone this upcoming Thursday is our annual Mayor's Tree Lighting and Holiday Festival here in Armstrong Park. The event will be from 6 to 8 p.m. Again, this is a free event to the community. We'll have hot chocolate and cookies. The 5th grade choirs from all 4 elementaries will be there singing Christmas carols. And we'll be showing Elf, the movie, during the event, and Buddy the Elf will be present at the event as well, too. So anyway, we hope to see everyone out there.
She was typing. And
Thanks.
we'll go over to Ms. Logan.
I just wanted to share that election filing starts on 12/6, Tuesday the 6th, for the April 4th, 2023 municipal election. It's through December 27th, which is also a Tuesday. It's 8 to 5, Monday to Friday. We do close for lunch 12 to 1, and then any days that City Hall posts that they are closed, we will be closed as well for filings. And then it's listed on the ballot in the order that you file. So the first person here gets listed in that category on the ballot, which I think all of you probably remember that.
And the only other thing, I just wanted to give you an update on the recruitment for the police chief position. So the application deadline did pass, and we had a little over 20 applicants for that. So the recruiter at this time is working on paring that down to no more than 6 to send through the assessment center. If you remember when we approved the agreement with the recruiter, that was one of the big things for that. So they'll run through, I think it is 5 different exercises. But basically anything that you could possibly come up with in your role as chief. And they have a panel that comes in and kind of reviews that. The idea being after that, 2 to 3 have kind of risen to the top. And then that's what we're kind of make those final decisions on how we want to move forward with that. But definitely a very positive response, considering some of the other postings that we had heard about. So I think that's positive, and just look forward to continuing that process. That's it for staff comments.
All right. Next up, Board of Alderman reports and comments. Alderman Arnold.
Nothing.
Alderman Mills.
Nothing at this time.
Alderman Bass.
Nothing at this time.
Alderman Skinner.
Nothing at this time.
Alderman Knox.
I have nothing either.
All right. Alderman Cleaver.
Nothing.
Oh. Next up, mayor's report. I guess I'll add nothing to that. So, I believe we do not have a need for an executive session, correct? All right, so unless someone has something else for a regular session, we will adjourn.